Hi everybody, I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture.com.
And I'm Adam Cleary from WhatCulture.com. Coming up for you today, we have the briefest, most succinct rundown of the WrestleMania results we are physically capable of doing, and Nia Jax slam dunks someone on Twitter.
I'm going to tell you an interesting backstage note from the WrestleMania tapings, but first of all, we're going to give you a comprehensive breakdown of everything that was awesome about the Firefly Funhouse match. This is the news. Don't quite have Adam Wilborn's panache, but he was on the live stream last night. He's currently in bed. I'm very sorry, all my friends. Anyway, let's talk about this Firefly Funhouse. This thing was crazy. It was a riot, it was a hoot, it was everything in between, but on top of that, it was quietly one of the smartest, the most intelligent, and most well put together matches that WWE has done in a long time. Felt like they were really trusting your intelligence with this one, and that's kind of refreshing because when you saw this booking, you might have looked at it and gone, well, this could be amazing, or in all likelihood, it might be something along the lines of the hardcore House of Horror thing with Randy Orton the other year, which is what this was referred to in the build-up, lest we forget, in several reports. However, it really delivered. Now, before this match, you go back to SmackDown on Friday night, you think of Cena's promise, that being to end the existence of the most overhyped, overvalued, overprivileged WWE superstar in existence. Shooter Cena was in full effect, the internet was buzzing, and of course everyone assumed he was talking about Bray Wyatt. He wasn't talking about Bray Wyatt, he was talking about himself. So the whole match played out like a massive deconstruction of Cena as like WWE's ace-like figure, as a Hogan-like figure, a divisive figure who, in the eyes of many, embodied many of Hulk's worst traits while he was at the top of the card. And that is kind of broken down here by the esteemed, credible, and respected Reddit user, Big-Eyed Tit Monster.
To Mr. and Mrs. Tit Monster, his son Big-Eyed.
There we go. Look at all the fears, the insecurities of John Cena that this thing really tore apart. The fear of making a bad debut. Kind of insecurities relating to his past in bodybuilding. That's why we got the crazy thing like that with the barbells. His rap career not working out for him. What would happen if he did turn heel? That's why we had the Hulk Hogan segment, the NWO segment. It was like, look at the second life that this gave Hulk Hogan, John Cena. That could have been you, but you were playing. Having to retire, of course. He just kind of vanished at the end of this match because you can't see him after all. His relationship with Nikki Bella, fear of commitment, all this great stuff, really cutting down one of the most divisive figures in WWE history, and of course, in exposing these fears and kind of making Cena fight them, Bray was feeding into his own character. This was a huge victory across the boards.
I absolutely cannot for the life of me understand how this not only managed to follow the Boneyard match, but exceed it in sort of like storytelling levels. I'll be honest, when I sat watching this, there was parts this morning where I was like, this is absurd, this is ridiculous. But as you say, once you start seeing all the little elements of it, once you start realising what they're all trying to signify, it actually becomes arguably the smartest, most well-informed thing WWE have done on a big pay-per-view, certainly, for years and years and years. I think it's going to be poured over, studied over. We're certainly going to go back and watch it 2 or 3 times today. It's, dare I say it, a triumph?
An absolute triumph, I reckon. Just a complete home run success. Far better, I think, than even my highest expectations. And my expectations were quite high because Bray Wyatt's a really creative guy. And we heard all these talks about like big cinematic stuff. But after the Boneyard match, I felt particularly confident that it was going to really be a success. But hey man, like, it's one of the best things Bray's ever done. I was totally into it.
Can you imagine if I'd said to you yesterday, I'm predicting that some part during the second part of WrestleMania, not only will we see Eric Bischoff, but we will quickly see CM Punk as well.
Yeah, I know, man. And then of course we got the little such good SHIT line from the Vince puppet and the whole thing, little jab back at AEW after recent digs from Brody Lee. Yeah, man, good stuff.
Of course, it wasn't the only major talking point coming out of WrestleMania, even if it was the major talking point. Obviously, Edge finally had a showdown with Randy Orton. That is something that's going to divide opinion as well. They brawled all the way back through the backstage arena. If anything, thought it looked exactly the same as it would have looked had there been a 90,000, 200,000, 400,000 capacity crowd there. It's certainly not the end of this story, I feel. Edge definitely putting his television acting to good work with the finale, appearing to be really upset and traumatised over the whole thing, but in the end cracking Randy Orton's skull and getting the victory there. Charlotte is the new NXT Women's Champion, a result that people were kind of predicting either way, I thought. I can see this one, again, being quite divisive. Some people are in favour of Charlotte going back to NXT for a little run. Some people don't think she should be able to get to walk over the roster like that, especially with the NXT Women's roster being as strong as it is. But regardless, she will no doubt be on NXT this week as WWE somehow continues to push forward with live events. Did you enjoy the advert for Money in the Bank, Andy? I certainly did, but as well as that, we do have our first ever British WWE champion. Now, this should be a headline in all of itself because Drew, he left the Indies, he went back to WWE, and when he did it with a promise that he would be your first ever British WWE champion, and he was. He beat Brock Lesnar last night in a score I recorded of 4 finishes to 3, which I think, as we know here in Britain, is an absolutely barnstorming result. They did the Goldberg-Braun match, again, with pretty much the exact same result. It was a strange end to a show that had hit such creative highs, but nonetheless, Drew is the champion. I kind of hope that when WWE goes forward with this and they start gently glossing over the last couple of weeks and what a disaster it was in some parts and how different it was in others, I hope they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one. I hope we do still see that footage of Drew raising that title for the first time for years and years to come. But up to them on that one. As well as that, what else do we have? The Street Profits. They retained their tag team championship against the team of NXT Random 1 and NXT Random 2. That was very nice. Bianca Belair sort of making a main roster debut there. We'll have to wait and see. And of course, the big event of the night, Andy, the main event, the spiritual main event, the longest running story going into this pay-per-view. Otis finally beat Dolph Ziggler. Finally got to smooch Mandy Rose on the lips. Although if you zoom in, you can see he tries to sort of change it from a smooch to a and she's like, no, I'm not doing that. So that was good. Overall, I thought a great night, a really great card, a really exciting evening.
Really nice to have some escapism at this time as well. Like, you know, they could have easily just mailed in a drab show, but they didn't. They kind of went all out, and that kind of ties in with my next story here. What a segue. Courtesy of Wade Keller over at Pro Wrestling Torch. Had a note kind of between the two shows yesterday when he was picking apart the show as part of his review, his wrap-up, his recap. I'm just going to read this to you verbatim. From a number of wrestlers who were at the tapings, I did hear that this was not like a Saudi Arabia kind of feeling of let's just get through this. The attitude among the wrestlers was everybody really wanted to work hard and try and make this work. This did come across as a night where the wrestlers were like, look, we're here, we're not under protest, we're not resentful, and we don't see this as unimportant. I was told that the attitude among the crew was let's surprise people. That was the attempt, and I think it's clear that they were attempting to work hard and salvage this, given the circumstances. I think that really came across in the matches. You look at things like Daniel Bryan, he booted the piss out of Sami Zayn. Wrestlers were aware that maybe they had to work a little stiffer, a little snugger, to kind of fill in the gaps left by the lack of audience. The constant trash talk through the matches and stuff was something that was really enjoyable as well, because you know it's kind of going on. During normal matches, you just can't hear it for the most part because, well, there's a crowd. So really good to hear that everyone kind of rallied around this and didn't just go, oh, it's pre-taped WrestleMania, it's going to suck, so we're not going to try and all this. They really busted their back ends to produce a really good show, and it, like Wade's report here, really came across on the show.
I think that was apparent about halfway through the show last night, especially when the ladder match started, because WrestleMania's got a storied history of ladder matches, and it was kind of understandable that, you know, under the circumstances with it being a triple threat for a tag team title and all that, it could have been very easily phoned in. The three men involved could have, you know, preferred to protect their bodies, you know, their long-term careers. They could reshoot a couple of spots, try and do them as safe as possible. But watching that match, you didn't get the impression this was a phoned-in, pre-taped event. They were putting everything into it. And of course, later in the night, Seth Rollins took that huge dive off the top of the WrestleMania signage. It's clear that everybody on the show was treating this like a proper WrestleMania, and if they hadn't, that would have been so apparent to the watching audience at home. We would have known this was a phoned-in grandest stage of them all, and it would have, I don't know, it would have ruined it. The whole thing would have felt really hollow. But I think finishing up last night, there was a genuine sense of everybody involved in this has done absolutely everything they can to put on the best possible show. And you know, we do like to lay into WWE for phoning things in, for taking the easy option, for not expressing themselves as creatively as they can do. Every single person involved with this show deserves a huge round of applause. The conversation about whether or not it should happen, that's in the past. It did happen. We've now watched it. What they do from here is the conversation you need to have there. But I just think Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm very grateful to them all for putting so much hard work into that because, well, as you say, Andy, we need a distraction at the minute, and I have been fully distracted both the last 2 nights and I'm sure for the rest of the week as a result. Anyway, though, we have got another story.
I was thoroughly sports entertained.
Yeah, I'll put it that way. It wasn't all roses and smiley faces and kisses and little text messages saying, didn't we do a good job? Because you may have noticed last night that none other than Liv Morgan came down to the ring dressed about 32% like Scarlett Bordeaux. And a few people pointed this out on Twitter. They were like, wow, doesn't that bear a loose passing resemblance? And of all people to chime in on this was Killer Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux's boyfriend, recent WWE recruit, someone whose appearance has been teased on NXT in recent weeks. He just asked, good question, as in like, yeah, what's she doing there, the silly girl? And of course, none other than Nia Jax. Yes, you remember her, how could you forget? She quote tweeted that with, and I'm quoting here, you better take an F***K-in seat real quick, dude. And I don't know, I'm an innocent man. I don't know what could be hidden behind those stars, but I presume it's an expletive and it's not too kind. So there, by the very loosest definition of the term, 2 WWE stars have heat, and it'll be interesting to see how this is resolved in the coming days, if indeed it is.
Shoot season never closes,
Never does,
and now, of course, the big takeaway from all of this is that we now know, finally, who Nia Jax's feud when she returns is going to be. Killer Kross. Didn't get the Dean Ambrose match, we're getting this one. Shall we move on to the questions?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do it. Lovely one here from David James Mackay, who asks, so with no crowd, you could hear plenty that you normally wouldn't. In Aleister Black's entrance, the sound of the standing lift was haunting and really added to the atmosphere. So, what was your favourite entrance at WrestleMania 36? Mine was really simple. As The Undertaker on his goddamn motorbike with a weird, stupid Metallica song. Yeah. I can't really pick anything else. It was just the most beautiful time of all time.
You're absolutely correct. The best... Well, actually, I'd say AJ Styles maybe just pips him with that for popping out of the coffin like, hey! True. However, my favourite anything this WrestleMania weekend, which I enjoyed at first, while seeing everyone on Twitter being like, this is bad, I was sat there going, no, but this is actually good. And nobody's topped it yet for me. It was just... Asuka and Kairi Sane. Like, I knew they were trash-talking Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. I knew they were running them into the ground. I could not understand a word of it, and it entertained me so... Like, just the vitriol, the amount you could infer from what they were saying without understanding the language, the vitriol, the condescension, everything about it. I somehow understood every word without understanding a single one. And for as long as WWE insists on doing shows like this, I would have Asuka and Kairi Sane on them. It just pops me. It just really pops me.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. They're just a tremendous act, and long may they continue. Another question here from Daniel Bishop Petrick, who asks, the biggest question every WrestleMania is who stole the show? I say the Firefly Funhouse with John Cena and Bray Wyatt stole the whole thing because after 2 nights, it's all I can think about. I agree with you, but for the sake of... offering something different. You know, my favourite things on the 2 shows were that and the Boneyard match. However, let's just put a little shout out to Kevin Owens. He didn't have to do that dive at all, but he did for your entertainment. And I think that deserves shouting out.
It's not so much that he didn't have to do the dive, it's that he didn't have to do the dive like that. There are so many creative ways they could have filmed that where it just looked like he did a big dive. Or they could have even had the Shane McMahon inflatable cushion thing under the commentary desk, and he went, nah, I'll just do it. Nobody in the entire room will cheer for this, but I'll do it because Kevin Owens is really good. The Firefly Funhouse has stolen the show, but I'm just going to offer something else on this regard, right? Yes, all the stuff in it was brilliant. Bray Wyatt was fantastic, and all his different guises. The theme was brilliant. Huskus the Pig Boy was fantastic. Using the old Bray Wyatt from the WrestleMania match with John Cena was brilliant. Then Cena was brilliant as well, and all the different guises when he did his prototype debut style. And he went back to the Dr. Thugonomics. Then it was just John Cena being exposed for what it was. Yes. All this was brilliant, but did any of it get you off your seat quite as much as Titus?
I could feel the ground shake from the reaction in the Wilborn household as that happened. We don't live far away, myself and Adam Wilborn, but man, my whole living room was falling apart.
I elected to go to sleep at a reasonable hour last night, having stopped up to watch the first night, and get up early to watch it instead. And I'm genuinely not making this up. About 3:15, I woke up in the middle of the night, right, and went, what was that? And I just went straight back to sleep, and I thought it was like a car or something. I didn't know what. This is 100% true. And I'm looking at the timestamps now. That would have been about the time Titus came on. So I'm just going to tell myself that was Wilborn. The pop from Wilborn woke me up.
Reverberated across the whole goddamn plane. I love to see it. Final question comes from Bobby Cox. Real simple one here. Look at what the planet is going through right now. Do you think all of this could have been avoided if we still had the planet's champion? Nice picture there, Daniel Bryan. The organic crazy belt. I think this is as good a case for a return to Eco Warrior Daniel Bryan as any. He would have saved us from all of this.
I don't think Daniel Bryan would have saved us from this. I just simply think the scale of it all was too much for one man to have fought off successfully. We've all seen the movie Contagion. Matt Damon is unable to do the Daniel Bryan role in that because he is, of course, just one man. Lawrence Fishburne, just one man. The last from Titanic, we've got a Whams out, just one man as well. It's just, I think had he been champion during all of this, I think we all could have learned more valuable lessons. I think we all would have been more likely to stay in the house when we were told in the beginning, and I just think he would have been the man to steer us through it all. However, nothing stopping you, Drew, as a man who's taken multiple transatlantic flights. You know the impact on the environment. I think he could be the man to maybe, just maybe, rise up in the midst of all of this and save us. But hey, what do I know?
Hey, we're only fannies on a YouTube video on the internet. Anyway, thank you for joining us today for this post-WrestleMania. This is the news. We might be back later on. We might not. Depends how much news stories break. We will see. You can find, I don't know how this is going to work, but you can find Adam Cleary on Twitter at
Adam Cleary, Clery, and you can find Andy Murray at.
And you can find me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for, hey, WrestleMania was really good. It's lazy, but that's what you're getting. Bye.